If you're someone who loves productivity tools and in general organization, you've probably heard of Notion. It's an all-in-one workspace tool built by Ivan Zhao in 2013. I remember the early days of Notion when everyone wanted to use it as a new note-taking tool, which was simple and had some really nice features for organizing things. But considering this being an all-in-one workspace tool, it was bound to have many more features over time, like any other tool or product in general. This has happened over the years, and many people have stayed on top of these features. But for someone who is maybe just very new to this tool and just wants to get started, this can be a little bit overwhelming because you search Notion anywhere online and see all these amazing creators and builders making these beautiful templates and dashboards and whatnot. In fact, there are many who consider Notion to now have literal learning curve, it being overwhelming and too much to even think about. I mean, of course, people are indeed using it very broadly. Some people even have this idea of using Notion as your second brain, building literal systems of your life on this product. Well, this is one of the great things about this tool. This is clearly too much for those who are just getting started. But I want you to forget about all of these if you are really just getting started. I want you to think about this tool as something that you can really customize and use it as you need it. Because, as someone who has used Notion for a long time, I know that you can even use the very fundamental and core features of Notion and you can immediately get a lot of value out of it. So in this video, I'll show you how to get started with Notion, learn the basics, the 101. We'll go through a few things. I'll help you set up Notion. I'll go through understanding of the layout a little bit, which is really very simple and easy to understand. Then we'll see how to build and connect databases. Databases, in fact, are the lifeline of Notion. If you know databases, you pretty much know a significant part of Notion. And then finally, we'll maybe build a project tracker using databases and some other features of Notion. And along the way, I'll have some good tips for you that you can use as you get used to the new tool. So let's get started. After you have created an account, logged in to Notion for the very first time, this is the page that you're going to see. And here, just to showcase how this works, I'm just going to choose a random one. I'm going to say for personal life, continue. I just want to use it on my own for now. And then you can say, I will skip this for now. And then Notion will set up a few basic features just by itself. So now that we have logged into Notion, this is what the layout really looks like that you would be using on a day-to-day basis. Now let me walk you through the basics of this layout, right? It's very simple to understand. What you see at the very center of your screen on the right-hand side here is basically the canvas itself of Notion, where you're writing the text, where you have your major content. On the left-hand side is basically this navigation, where you have your workspace name at the very top, which says Product Vices Notion. And you can open this up, you can add other workspaces, you can add another account and see a workspaces under that account and things like that. We have search, we have Notion AI, home, inbox, which is basically your center for notifications. Then below that you have pages, right? And so basically the reason it says private on top of pages is because these pages are owned by you and not shared with anyone else. If you decide to eventually share any of these pages with your friends, with your coworkers, then there is another section that gets added here, which is called a public space, and it lists the pages that are shared with others. And then there are some other features like settings, templates, trash when you delete any pages and things like that. So that's really the navigation, and this is really the canvas where you're doing things. So it's very easy to understand, and that is really the crux of what the layout is like. One other thing to look at is like this top navigation up here, which is basically a tab system where you can hit plus and you can pretty much create another page here. For instance, if I hit create a new page, it just creates a new tab with a new page right on this left hand navigation here. And then you have some other features here like share, you have comments, you have star, and you have some other options. Now, I'm not going to go deep into all of these smaller features that you will learn eventually over time, right? These are pretty simple to understand. I'm going to show you some of the better features of Notion and where it can really provide you a lot of value. So now to get started with Notion, I'm going to introduce you to this concept called blocks, which basically makes up all of Notion, right? So I'll just navigate to this new page that we just created. I'm going to just name this page, let's say projects. Now to understand about blocks in Notion, something to understand first is how Notion is structured really. It really is a set of pages that make up Notion. So basically, the pages that you see on your left hand navigation bar are kind of your top level pages. That could be like, let's say, a dashboard page or maybe a collections page. But inside these pages, you can create more pages. And within those pages, you can create more pages. And then inside them, there can be more pages. So it's basically all of Notion is pages inside of pages inside of pages inside of pages. So now let's talk about blocks. Anything in Notion is basically a block. So what does that mean? Let's say I'm going to do the most basic thing in Notion, which is basically writing up some text, right? So I say this is some text and this is some more text, right? And so basically what I have done is I've written some text, but both of these things are different blocks. So the way you see those blocks is basically just hover over them and you see this navigation and handlebar, and these are basically blocks. And you click them once, and you see this whole block being highlighted and what all things you can do with the block, right? Similarly, you can create other things like headings, you can create new pages, as I said, inside of another page, which will also be acting as a block inside of Notion. You can add an image, you can add a video, you can add some other kind of file inside the page. That is also going to be acting as a block. Now you might wonder, how do I know what all types of blocks I can make? It's pretty simple. It's a very common shortcut that people use, which is basically hitting the forward slash. If you hit the forward slash, you will see all kinds of blocks that you can make on Notion itself. The most basic form is text. You can make another page, you can make to-do lists, which are basically checkboxes. You can make different kinds of headings. There are three types of headings, heading 1, 2, 3. There are tables, and as I said, one of the things will be databases. That can also be one of your block items, right? Now, let's say you want to set up, let's say, a text document. You can just hit H1 and it will select heading, and you hit enter and there's your heading 1. So this is my heading 1, and then you hit, and then you can pretty much write a normal sized text, and then you can pretty much select the text and you can do all kinds of formatting. So this is pretty basic. This is very easy to understand. There's not really much to explain. So I think this is what you would look for as, let's say, just a note-taking feature of Notion, right? There's nothing much to see here. Now what comes is some of the nice features, some of the very useful blocks that I've seen is one of those things called horizontal lines, which can help divide a lot of your content. If you have long form text, you can just use these blocks, divide that, right? Another one of those blocks is a call out, which I really like. Similarly, if you have, let's say, a long form doc where you want to highlight some specific tips or maybe highlight some specific ideas, you can just do a call out and you can write like this is some kind of a tip, right? And the nice thing about this tip is like you can also customize what icons these callouts have. So maybe I will create another callout here. I'll just say callout, and then I will say this is a warning callout, right? And then I can go ahead and change the icon here to a warning sign, right? So this could be very useful and very handy. So there are a lot of different kind of blocks, and I would have you go in and explore these different kind of blocks in Notion. It's really not hard to understand. So this is basically it. You just hit forward slash and you kind of explore different kinds of blocks on Notion. Now let's go ahead and see how we create databases. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do the same thing, which is go forward slash and then type in databases. And as I type databases, you see there are different kinds of blocks here that are appearing, starting with the first one saying database inline, then there's database full page, table view, board view, gallery view, all kinds of things here, right? Now, one thing that you don't need to worry about right now is the different kind of views, because no matter what view you start with, you can always go in and create another view at a later time. So you don't need to worry about all of these views. Maybe something you should think about is what is the first two options here, which is database inline and database full page. Basically what database full page is basically if you create this, Notion will create a whole new page and that will be dedicated to that specific database. On that page, you cannot do anything else. You can just create a database and you can have items in that database. Whereas database inline, what that will do is it will not create a new page. It will use this existing page here and it will just embed a new database right here. So that can be useful when you have other kinds of content, like you have text, you have callouts, you have images, videos, and you also want a database in that same page, right? So I'm just going to show you both of those. If I hit database full page, you see it just created a new page and it created a new database for me right here, right? And you can see that this is an untitled page, and I can just name it, let's say, example database. What's happening is this example database itself is a whole page, and the whole page is basically a database itself, which is inside the projects page that we were working on previously. I can just go back to the projects page now, and what I'll do is now I will create an inline database instead of a full page one. So I'll go / database, and I'll just say inline, right? And so now I have an inline database that is within the existing page itself. I did not end up creating a new page, and now I can see this database with the other content right here as well. Now let's say I name this as my projects because I want to list down and store my projects and information regarding them in this database. Now coming back to the idea of pages, a database is also a collection of pages really. So every new entry that you create on a database will become a page in itself. So for instance, if I, let's say, want to create a new entry here, I'll just hit new page and I can add a name here. Let's say I'll just say project 1, and then I can create another one here which will be project 2, and then you can just even hit shift enter as a shortcut to create a new row, and you can say project 3, shift enter, and then it would be project 4. These are the few entries that I'm creating on this database itself. And what you will see is that each of these entries say this open option where you can open and it will be a page in itself, right? Now before we go into that, I'll show you that you can also really customize this database itself into different views and different things. So one of the first things that we'll do here is we'll create other columns. So what you're seeing here is basically different types of properties that you can add to a specific row in a database, right? It could be a text, it could be a number, it could be categories that you can have, select, multi-select, different statuses, it could be a date, it could be someone you're assigning a project to. So you have different types of fields that you can create. So I'm going to go ahead and let's say create a description, and here I'll just leave it as description as the name of this field for this database because it will be the description of the project. And then I'll go in and I'll maybe add a, let's say, date here. And when I say date, it's just going to have open a calendar when I'm trying to add anything here. And this can also be customized. So if you want to, let's say, see both the start and end dates of a project, you can just toggle this option on here and it will give you the option of starting and ending a project. So I can say December 15th, which is today, and I can say the end date would be December 28th, right? So I have a start date and end date for my project. Then I can expand and, really shorten these columns to whatever I want with them. I want to add more columns. Let's say I want to add a select type, which is basically different categories that you can add as a column. So I will just say category, and then within category, if you want to add, let's say, different kinds of categories, you can just type in here. Let's say I will say design, I can say engineering for a different project, I can say marketing for another one. I will just add another design project, right? So these are different categories of these projects. And then the description is basically a text field here, right? This is a text description. So again, this is pretty easy to set up. This is the very basics of setting up your database. Now if you're wondering that this is really weird that the database looks really short here, what you can also do is you can go to these options here and you can do full width, and the whole page itself will become full width, and you can see more columns very easily without having to scroll too much. I'm just going to go ahead and add a few more dates to some of the other projects. I'm going to add a due date here and a start date here for all of these projects. More description, more, and more. And then I'll also add some more dates here for each of these projects. Alright, let's see. This and this. And then for this one, I'll also add a few specific dates, right? Just like this. So it's pretty easy to set up, right? And once I've set this up, I have the basic database set up. Now, as I was talking about, once you have started your database, you can pretty much move and create different views of a specific database that you already have. So the way to do that is basically going above the title of the database itself. You see this plus sign, you hit it, and you'll see the kinds of different views that you can make on Notion with a database. I'll just show you some of the more common ones that are used. The current view that you're watching is basically a table view, which is presenting everything as a table. What I'll show you is the board view, which is basically, if you have any idea of project management terms, it's really a Kanban board, which will list out different properties here, and it will show you the different row items in the table view as different cards here itself. And these are also basically the same pages right there, right? And then I'll show you another view here, which is going to be the timeline view, which is going to be very interesting. So because we set up start and due dates for each of our projects, what you can see here is that in this calendar view, you can almost get a Gantt chart view, right? That's another project management term, but it's pretty common. You see this whole kind of a roadmap and timeline of all of these projects laid out over time, right? Which is very, very nice and very interesting. So there's a lot of customizations that you can do with this database. And if you are interested in learning about more of those specific features, leave a comment below. I can go more in depth in a later video. But these are basically the very, very basics of creating a database. Now you can pretty much open up any page and you can use it as you want, right? You can even expand this page and you can pretty much do anything you like. You can add headings here, you can add more text here, and you can add images, videos, whatever you want. You can add all kinds of blocks. This is just another page inside a database, which is inside a page itself. Now, one more thing that I'll show you is how to connect multiple databases. So before we can actually connect two different databases, I'll actually create my second database. So I'll just use one of the projects here, one of the project pages, just this one, to create another database like this. I'll just make it inline, and I will actually call this database as, let's say, tasks tracker, right? So I have a project, I want to build up different tasks, I want to track them. And I'm just gonna go right up here, and I'm gonna make this full width as well, just so that I can see the table more easily. Let's say I create a few tasks. I'm gonna say task 1, task 2, task 3, right? And then I'm gonna say, let's say I want to assign a task to someone, so I'm gonna say person type. So there's a type of field, which is a person, and then whoever is on your Notion workspace, you can add that person here. You can pretty much assign it to them. For now, there's just one person, which is me, so I'll just say product price, which is the person right here. And you can add more different kinds of fields here as you like, as you want to customize. Let's say I add another one, which is a status type, and this will give me some default values like not started, in progress, and done fields, and I can just pretty much have status of different tasks that are happening in this project, right? So this is, let's say, my tasks tracker database for now. Now that we have two different databases, one of them that we already created, which was the projects database, and this project one page is basically an entry inside the my projects database itself. And then inside this page, we have another database, which is the tasks tracker database, where I'm listing the different tasks that are related to this project itself. Now, let's say, why would you even need to connect multiple databases? So for instance, let me give you an example of a task. Let's say we are creating a logo. We are making, let's say, create logo. So for something like a task like this, maybe let's say different projects are going to use the same logo itself, right? Like I have my product wise channel, I want to use the same logo for all the projects that I make for this channel. So this task itself will be related to multiple projects. It doesn't have to be related to just this project itself. So how do I make sure that this task shows up in multiple projects itself, right? So what I can do right now is I can pretty much go back to my projects here, and I want to see the different tasks that are related. What I want to do is basically I want to make sure that even though the first task is already only inside project 1 page within the tasks tracker of project 1. I want to make sure, because this is a common tasks, I can somehow relate this to the other projects as well, right? So I want to connect this database to this database right here, right? So the way to do that is basically just another field type here. So you can go to this database, hit plus, and the field type that we're looking for is called a relation. And once you hit relation, it will ask you which database do you want it to relate to. And we know which database we want to relate it to, which is the My Projects database right here. You hit My Projects, and what we want to do right here is want to create a two-way relation so that we can see on both databases how the other database is related. For instance, in this tasks tracker database, I want to see that this task is related to other projects in the My Projects page. And then in the My Projects database, I want to see how the singular task is related to all of these projects there itself, right? So I'm just going to create a two-way relation, and I'm going to, let's say, create a property name being tasks. So this property will actually show up in the other database. So I'll say add relation, right? So now what's happening is that it has created this new field where I can add in the different projects, right? Different entries on the other database itself, right? So if I hit here, what I'll see the other entries on the other databases. So I'm going to say it's not just project 1, it's project 1, it's project 2, it's project 3, and it's project 4. So this task 1, which is creating a logo, it applies to all of these projects, project 1, 2, 3, 4. And then if I go to the My Projects database, what you'll see here is that for each of the projects here, you have a new column here which is called tasks, and you see the same tasks being repeated. So now you know that even though this task is maybe in one of the databases out there, it is the common task between all of these projects. It shows you the view for common tasks. So this is how you create connections between different tables. You create a relation, and you basically get to see different fields connect to different fields in two different databases. Now I know this can be overwhelming already for you, but I think I just wanted to show you this so that you can have an idea of what kinds of customizations and what kind of potential Notion has, right? So this is where I will end this video pretty much. I'm not going to go much further here because I think these features are the very core functionalities of Notion that make up Notion, the pages and the databases. And I think once you start using these, you're eventually gonna find the other features over time. And it's a pretty intuitive product in my opinion, and that will be very easy for you to pick up as you need different things. And I can definitely make up more detailed videos if you're specifically interested in specific features. So please let me know in the comments below. But I hope this video has been useful for you, and this gives you some hope to, let's say, get started without being worried about the learning curve that everyone's talking about. Just start with the basic features and you will really love Notion.